And so this is the 2150 hours GMT edition of the Khoodeelaar television channel, broadcasting under the theme of Baby Angel Geronimo, and also advocating End Hunger at Root movement. The End Hunger at Root movement was devised by me and has been supported by Kutubuddin, who is now in Dhaka in Bangladesh, but he's due to return to Sylhet in a few days' time. And if he can join this broadcast, we shall get some updates from him about Bangladesh. And if he doesn't, then we shall continue without him, but we shall allow him access whenever he can technically and otherwise make use of the access. This is the Khoodeelaar television channel. Khoodeelaar. Khoodeelaar is a three-dimensional word that I created in 2003 and 4 while initially discussing with K. Jordan. K. Jordan, the architect, and the K. Jordan, the architect of the Brick Lane area defense activities over several decades. K. Jordan and I were walking towards Bishopsgate, also known as the entrance, well, as the side, as the road from which travelers and people using the Liverpool Street railway networks enter the network stations and use the District and Hammersmith line, the Central line, and now the Crossrail line. I think I haven't yet used the Crossrail line, but evidential interest warrant that I should take a test look at the operation of the Crossrail line. Now, not far from the Liverpool Street access from Bishopsgate is a building called the Point, whatever point it is. And that is the point that was involved in the scandal. The scandal that was unraveled, well, published by the Rupert Murdoch controlled Sunday Times, briefly reporting that Ken Livingston, at the end of or towards the end of his first term as the incumbent in the post of the mayor of London at the expense of the people of London, was desperate for funding. And one of the people he approached was a convicted criminal. The convicted criminal is a multimillionaire, but he was and has been a convicted criminal. And the convicted criminal himself was prepared to make a criminal corrupt investment so that the building, could be given or receive the financially lucrative, very lucrative planning permission, which would be uniquely obtainable by the exploitation or collusion of the post holder in the post of the mayor of London. It's a question of influence, not necessarily the technical kind of decision that the lying still Ken Livingstone would make, but the influence he would assert, and he did assert. So, according to the Sunday Times, can lying still Livingstone, the crooked socialist, received a sum of money, and in return, he used his influence, as the pair of the money had anticipated and plotted and planned. The pair of the money, of course, was a conservative with both C, small c, and other shapes and forms of the sea. He never was, most certainly, never was anything other than a conservative. Students of linguistics and students of British English may be familiar with the various phrases and words. And the is it Gerard Ronson is one of the three, Guinness three, I think, that were jailed for fraud. He calculated that a sufficiently pliant and financially massaged Ken Livingstone would return the investment that would make him, Gerald Ronson, and his colluders the equivalent to hundreds of millions of pounds. Can you imagine? This is something that you are hearing about on this program. Exclusive, world exclusive, unique. Now, so that is the Khoodeelaar campaign. Khoodeelaar means three-dimensional word I created politically. Khoodeelaar means that the enemies of the community, the enemies of the society, enemies of the area are digging a deadly hole against the physical presence and existence of the community. So that is a kind of warning aspect of the word Khoodeelaar. It's very near the French word oh yeah, the town crier. But the town crier, oh yeah, comes nowhere near the dimension, the depth of meaning, and the instantaneous appeal that the word Khoodeelaar, which I created, had on the target audience, which is the Siloti speaking, mainly Siloti speaking people in the Brick Lane area under the attack plot. That is one. The other one is the Khoodeelaar means that bad elements are digging a hole or digging up bad things from the area, buried in the area. And we have to, as a local community, for hygiene, health, etc. Now, in the period 2003 to 2004, there was no imagination about a pandemic, the viral kind of spread of a viral thing, but that was included. Subsequent events have shown. In my second aspect or second dimension of the word Khoodeelaar. And the other one is, of course, Khoodeelaar means it's a rush. It's happening right now. And all the people affected and all the people of the area, the village, the community must unite and get organized and mobilized to repel the criminals, attackers, violators, the invaders, the intruders. So that is the meaning of the word Khoodeelaar, but there are other meanings. But that is essentially the summary. Now, Khoodeelaar also is a statement in defense of the community, which was neglected by the local Tower Hamlets Council which had series of duties to safeguard the safety of the community, the best interests of the community, and so on. So therefore, that includes has included and will continue to include the democratic, ethical, moral, transparency, accountability duties owed by every single seeker of the votes of the people of Tower Hamlets and every single incumbent in the elected post, whatever the elected post is called, according to the electoral legislation in the UK, in place in the UK at the time. So Khoodeelaar is a multi-dimensional word. It's not just a 3 words, but it's about 10, 20. In effect, it's the manifesto. Khoodeelaar campaign is the manifesto for the defense of the community in the East End of London, in the UK. And Khoodeelaar has been the single most identifiable, active, consistent, ethical, moral, rigorous platform and slogan and demand that affects the behavior of the local Tower Hamlets Council as well as their colluders complicit with them and with whom they are complicit in the various bad things, negative things, bad things that go on against the interests of the people in the community, in the electorate, regardless of the ethnicity, the faith, color, whatever of the individuals concerned. So we shall continue on the theme of Khoodeelaar, not necessarily always mentioning these words, but this is the updated form, a summary. And the theme is the baby angel Geronimo. Baby angel Geronimo is a member of the camelid family, and his species or his subspecies is called alpaca, Alpaca. And this particular baby angel, Geronimo, is a baby that has been looked after by a woman called Helen MacDonald. Helen MacDonald is based in a place called South Gloucestershire in the southwest of England. And Helen MacDonald has many other alpacas. She is a seasoned breeder and a looker after of the alpacas. And for some reason which we do not know in kind of detail, she decided to buy baby angel Geronimo from his original mother in New Zealand. And the baby angel Geronimo arrived in perfect health in England and met Helen MacDonald sometime in 2017. Now, 2017 to 2022, how many years? It's 5 years. And during the 5 years, the criminals at the UK Department for Environment or whatever, called in short DEFRA, currently and crucially currently, fronted by the criminal, wrongdoer, moron, depraved cruelty inflictor, George Injustice Eustace, aided and abetted by the criminal, also known as the chief vet, a criminal woman called Christine Middlemiss. She misses everything. All the core concerns and duties are missing in her name and in her action. She is a disgraced, shamed criminal appointed in the wrong position as the chief vet. Now, this criminal, Middlemiss, aided and abetted by other lesser known criminals who have been engaged in a campaign to destroy the most healthy of the animals in this country. So, as part of that criminal program of genocide of the animals, this Helen Middlemiss and her colluders embarked on a plot and a plan and a conspiracy to demonize the baby angel Geronimo and defame him by falsely inventing a pathetic list of kind of illnesses that he never had and he never will have. But they said that he had. So they said that their criminal, dark age evil testing of the health regime produced a result that showed that baby angel Geronimo was ill or was infected. He never was. He never will be. He never could be. Baby angel Geronimo had been treated to the rigorous test process by his original mom in New Zealand before he left New Zealand. And he came out with brilliant health result. And the same thing has happened ever since. So we shall be updating on this, but the main theme, the umbrella of the baby angel Geronimo narrative agenda is that it covers the behavior of the Boris Johnson fronted cabal and the Boris Johnson kind of aided and abetted criminals across the state of the United Kingdom, where Boris Johnson is still in situ, in place as the so-called Prime Minister. Now, all the utterances made, particularly by the likes of Liz Untrustable Truss, boasting about the glorious morality and standards of the United Kingdom, are completely exposed as sham, lies, untruths, unsubstantiated and unsubstantiable. Because the witness that baby angel Geronimo has been shows that everything that the central government, UK central government has done, spewed, has been a lie. So baby angel Geronimo is a witness both about the biological state of the particular animals, but also about the moral bankruptcy and evil state of the United Kingdom government that has been fronted by Boris the Liar Johnson since the second half of 2019. And he has been festering in the corruption, the denial, the evil doing agenda that he and his colluders have been engaged in perpetrating, despite excellent, first class, highest standard of tests and evidence that have shown that everything liar Boris Johnson has done, his colluders have done, has been wrong, has been a lie. So this is why, for example, in the last 2 days, let's say 48 hours, in the main running order, the news items have included 2 items. There are, of course, hundreds of news items, so-called, but there are 2 items in particular that actually fit the description of the criminality that Boris Johnson's fronted cabal actually embodies and personifies. And that is, one is the reported plot by Dominic Raab to do away with aspects of the law or the aspects of the legal kind of process that actually backs the concept of rule of law and the concept of due process. And the second one is the latest lunacy of the mental slave and otherwise slave, a voluntary slave criminal called Suella Braverman. Now, Braverman is the name, an Anglo-Saxon name, I think, and a Western name, but Suella is a Portuguese name. It is linked with the fact that Suella, this evil one, is descended from the Portuguese occupied culture and biology in the island of Goa of India. The Suella Braverman, cowardly criminal, has been in the news saying, let's see what the Braverman headline in the Guardian website says in order to get it absolutely correct. Let's see where it is. Where is the news? The latest so-called news that features this criminal. Let's see what one is the latest one. Okay, so the item that is timed about an hour ago on the Guardian website as we speak at 22:09 hours GMT is headed UK must curb influence of European human rights rules, says Braverman. So let's look at the body of the item underneath that heading. So this is on the Guardian website, and it reads, UK must curb influence of European human rights rules, says Braverman. And she is described as Attorney General. Says it is, quote, national priority, unquote, to extricate UK from influence of European Court of Human Rights. And this is extricate. Notice the word extricate. This is a sick word. You only extricate X or Y or a thing from a very deadly, bad thing. Now, UK is lucky. It should be grateful to those drafters of the human rights legislation who incidentally included quite a number of British-born ones in the 1940s. This was done at the time the United Nations organization was founded. Of course, before the United Nations itself was founded, there was an experiment called League of Nations, which ended absolutely as a disaster because the bureaucrats put in place for the League of Nations were as incompetent, as corrupt, and as stupid as those leaders supposedly backing the League of Nations were. Now, the behavior of those criminals is something that we often think of We are forced to think of by the evidence of the behavior of the former Portuguese politician and currently in his second term as the chief bureaucrat at the United Nations Organization, Anthony Gutless. We call him Gutless Gutress. He's a preacher man. He's a sick making, absolutely pathetic kind of parasite of a man. I mean, there is no way that he could be compared with Dag Hammarskjöld. Dag Hammarskjöld was the United Nations Secretary General who was murdered by fascists and criminals and supporters of the anti-democratic agendas while he was touring into Africa. Dag Hammarskjöld remains the best United Nations Secretary General ever, but he had a very short time in post. But there is no comparison with him with the Anthony Gutless Gutress, because Gutless keeps spewing stupidities, sucking up to the world's monstrous regimes and monstrous regime frontiers. When the Muslims are being massacred, genocided, murdered, raped, and burnt alive, Muslim men, women, and children, in Burma by the Burmese thugs and fascists and anti-Muslim genociders, Anthony Gutless Gutress went to sleep. Had he been awake, then Burma would not have happened. I mean, the Rohingya Muslims would not have been massacred and genocided and raped and tortured and expelled and so on. So what is happening with this Suella Braverman cowardly use of the extricate thing is this, that any international legislation, which is called the treaty, any international treaty or law which a country like the United Kingdom signs, ratifies, any international law and treaty that the United Nations founding principles spawned, because human rights legislation, as we know, came into being only really after their declaration. The founding declarations behind the United Nations Organization in the 1940s. And as I said, to their credit, the late members of the British political establishment who took part in the drafting of much of the declarations for the United Nations, did an unprecedented and brilliant job of drafting liberating legislation. Without the United Nations framework, the unconstitutional, constitutionless United Kingdom Parliament and United Kingdom kind of politics or political system would be embarrassingly stupid, would look embarrassingly backward to the point that if Jonathan Swift were to write his Gulliver's Travels journey now about Britain, he would have to relegate the United Kingdom to a level far lower than the Lilliputians. Now, Boris Johnson has been benefiting from the Little Englander culture, fostered by the Little Englander and pornographic kind of brothel newspaper called the Scum, and the brothel newspaper called the Daily Mail. Now, the brothel newspaper description fits that Scum immediately, but the Daily Mail's brothel behavior doesn't belong or doesn't depend on the or isn't derived from the Daily Mail's actual print pages. What happens with the Daily Mail's circulation online is that online account or website of the Daily Mail is the world's most sought after pornographic site. The world's most sought after pornographic site is additionally camouflaged by its contents, the headlines being kind of rewritten in order to hide and conceal the real pornography. So the headlines suggest that they are news items, which they never are. For example, the various shapes of some of the most pornographically desirable women like Beyonce and Kim Kardashian and others are inflicted on the visitor at the slightest excuse and pretext. And what these people who visit the Daily Mail website do is nothing to do with the news or enlightenment. They want to see the bodies of these women and fantasize. That is how the Daily Mail has got the highest number of viewers of any news website in the whole of the world. So these are the two websites. One is Sun and the other is the Daily Mail. And they have supported Boris Johnson, they have supported the attacks on the human rights kind of influence that the UK has been under due to the treaties that the United Kingdom has signed. And these attacks come from the scum and the Daily Mail without any fail whatsoever. Now, an objective observer from planet Mars would think that given the pretensions of the Guardian would have an editorial policy that would rebut the lies of this scum and the Daily Mail every day. Nothing could be further from the truth because the Guardian, under the editorship of this very ignorant woman called Catherine Vane, is descending even further to the level where it was impossible to imagine it to descend, while the corrupt predecessor she has replaced was in place. So the Guardian is not on the equation. And the Daily Mirror, which is commercially in a position to compete with the scum, is not fit, morally not fit at all. And of course, the others are already in the camp of the conservatives and the kind of dark age and darkness and evil regime kind of demanders, evil regime, evil, ruleless, lawless kind of laws demanders, like the Daily Telegraph, which bribed Boris Johnson to the tunes of millions of pounds and made him politically viable. It has gone back to being behaving in a kind of telegraph sort of way. That means that it is not blindly kind of copying everything that Johnson would have wanted, but it is still a very much dedicated Boris Johnson supporting criminal outlet. This is also, in terms of shape of the paper, the only remaining broadsheet newspaper in the United Kingdom. Well, the broadsheet newspaper title in Fleet Street. In the country, there may be one or two remaining broadsheets, but in London, it is the only outlet that is printed in the broadsheet size. The financial crimes, as we've been saying, is misedited by this woman who was born in Lebanon, born a Muslim in Lebanon, but she has been brainwashed to the point where she is not quite as Priti Patel or Suella Braverman, but she is very much following the right wing agenda, the agenda that actually kind of appeases the likes of Boris Johnson. Because in her promotion piece for Boris Johnson, inserted in the piece published under the cover of a lunch with Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe, Rola Khalaf, that is her name, the Lebanese born and West briefed and West brainwashed current editor of the Financial Crimes, she did the soppy kind of bits about Nazanin's experience in detention in Iran. But she glossed over and she hid by being in denial, hid all the wrongdoings of Boris, the congenital liar Johnson. And the fact that it was Boris Johnson who aggravated Nazanin Ratcliffe's ordeals at the hands of the Iranian so-called Islamic regime, that is completely forgotten and covered up and hidden, as if the criminal behavior of the Financial Crimes in hiding the crimes of Boris Liar Johnson would be the definitive word. It would not be. And we shall be continuing to update on the craftily placed promotion of Boris Johnson over the plight of Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe, that the Financial Crimes actually published on Saturday and Sunday, 6th and 7th of August, I think, 2022. So the Financial Crimes, of course, is not an upholder of human rights and is not a place or a platform for the publication of definitive, informed, objective analysis about international law, about international human rights, and so on. So the Financial Crimes is out of the way, despite the fact that it has got a series of about 10 or so pretend columnists and writers whose pieces appear under temptingly false and misleading headlines that suggest that the Financial Crimes is really up to date and on the ball. It is not. It is a parasitical promoter of the big business crooks and corruption, and it doesn't really examine the massive criminality, trillion trillion pound corruption and criminality that takes place under the cover of the City of London and the United Kingdom so-called economy. The reason why the City of London has been attracting people historically, that is, it's not just a short-term thing I'm talking about, long before 2016, the Brexit referendum, is because the UK is the biggest offshore island financially, and the City of London is a real platform for offshore criminals from all over the world. Going back to Imran Khan and his kind of statements that were broadcast in Pakistan by Pakistan news media television outlets, included Imran Khan's references to what was going on, what is going on within the Conservative Party and the United Kingdom, based on according to Imran Khan's tag, the Partygate, or the party's rules that Johnson broke and got trapped in the controversy, which led to his being kind of ditched by his party. That is what Imran Khan has been saying. But of course, Imran Khan is talking to an audience that would not be having all the information that would be necessary to understand the other bits about the reasons for Boris Johnson's demise politically, career wise, as a top politician. Boris Johnson, of course, has been rumored in the meantime as saying that he is going to make millions, hundreds of millions by writing books and being on the circuit for speakers. Now, those who have been writing these are forgetting one thing. The point that Boris Johnson will be capable of writing and capable of speaking is not the real evidence about whether he's a good person or he's a bad person in terms of the positions in the state apparatus that he has been holding. No matter how many billions he may make, he will still remain a congenital liar. Because as Sylvie Barman, the French ambassador to the United Kingdom until 2017, has very convincingly established herself as saying that Boris Johnson is a congenital liar. Of course he is. Now, Boris Johnson is a congenital liar is as likely to survive Boris Johnson's stay in public eye and become a part of the vocabulary, public vocabulary, as Murdoch being called dirty digger by Private Eye has been, and will remain. Because Private Eye's entry on the Wikipedia has got a section about the names that Private Eye gives to various characters that are regular features on the magazine. And Dirty Digger is, I think, there, but I'll check that and update on the finding. Dirty Digger may not be there as at this date, but it will definitely be there. So, what we are now going on to talk about is what is happening with the Sunak and the Liz Truss thingy. That Liz Truss and Sunak are the two remaining contestants within the Conservative Party's inside bureaucracy that will decide whether it is Sunak or it is Liz Truss that becomes the next occupant in the post of the leader of the Conservative Party, the UK Conservative Party. If the leader becomes the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, because this is a government that has not fallen and has not been sunk by the MPs voting on, despite being given the opportunity to vote him out, it remains very much, in terms of numbers, Boris Johnson fronted members of the Conservative Party in Parliament, in the House of Commons, remain the strongest unit in numbers of MPs to be found in any group. The second big one was, of course, the Labour Party. And the third one is, of course, the Scottish National Party, the SNP. Neither the SNP nor the Labour Party has the record or any record of speaking up and speaking out for the defense of human rights and basic rights in any part or jurisdiction of the United Kingdom. The main jurisdiction in the UK, of course, is the English one. And the fact that David Neuberger, a Jewish son of Jewish migrants who came to the UK seeking asylum after the Nazis nearly murdered them and murdered many of their relations. It would be kind of logical, morally logical to expect someone of that description, like David Neuberger, to become a leading champion of human rights as based on the international treaties that the UK has actually signed. Why? Because Neuberger is only alive, has been alive only because compassion and human rights have been practiced by people who have given shelter to the Jewish people and other people fleeing the Nazi German persecution. You take away the human rights dimension from the behavior of any quote legal jurisdiction, and you take away the human rights, and you return to darkness of the worst kind. Suella Braverman is a multiple criminal who must be sacked and prosecuted and convicted. We shall be continuing on all of those things in due course and updating as and when updates are required by the moving, flowing events. We come back to the criminality of the criminally created post of executive elected mayor in Tower Hamlets. That criminality was inflicted by the election of October 2010, which showed Lutfi Rahman getting the maximum, the majority number of votes, and Lutfi Rahman was thus technically able to call himself the mayor, which he did. So that election was in the last 10 days of the month of October 2010. So 2 days before the month of October ended, that is on the Friday, 29th of October 2010, I used very gentle tactics, extremely gentle tactics, to record a devastating series of words that would forever condemn the liar and misfit Lutfi Rahman. As I prepared my camcorder at his direction, Lutfi Rahman was coming out of the mosque in Brick Lane on the 29th of October 2010. He gave me a completely empty and absolutely embarrassing salute. He has given me that empty and embarrassing salute dozens and dozens of times. Now, if he ever thought that he was fooling me, he never did. In fact, the most shocking moment when I discovered that Lutfi Rahman was evading me, and he was doing so as a liar, happened on the 6th of May 2010, when the referendum on the future of the council's constitution, that is, mayor system or not, took place alongside the election for the local councils. Now, I was standing in a side road from the Balance Road. Now, on that day, I hired a minicab, and I think I paid a lot of money for the minicab. I don't think it was a bad investment. Absolutely morally ethical, world exclusive investment that I made. So I was sitting, and then I got out of the minicab in that side road in order to observe the various canvassing going on outside the polling booth in the Balance Road. Osmani School, outside the Osmani School. And as I stood looking westwards from the Balance Road side, my side, my back was facing the Balance Road and my front was facing the opposite side. And I saw in the distance Lutfi Rahman appearing towards me. And I think as soon as he recognized me, he did a very crafty backward move, leftward move, and quickly, swiftly crossed the balance that side road into the other side of the road so that he would not be within physical reach of me telling him anything. Because the one thing that I've been doing is telling Lutfur Rahman that he's wrong on almost everything and that he should do the right things. He knows that. His otherwise criminal sponsors know that, but they don't have the moral clearance to come and confront me. They do it immorally, as they have done, and as I shall be updating in the due course. So, as Lutfur Rahman crossed the road, I went back to the minicab and I told the minicab driver, listen, you are a witness. I'm telling you that that liar boy is crossing the road in order to avoid telling the truth to the community. He is insulting my intelligence and is insulting his duties because he is doing that on purpose in order to avoid having to be held to account. Now, at that time in May 2010, Lutfur Rahman was still in place as a councillor in Tower Hamlets, as the leader of the Labour Party's group of councillors called the Labour Group. So, as soon as he was near enough towards me, towards the car, I got out of the minicab and I crossed the road very fast and I went to stop him. And he stopped and I told him, why was he avoiding me? And as Richard Morey has found, Lutfur Rahman is a man of very small number of words. He hardly speaks. And as Bob Neal, the Conservative MP for somewhere in Surrey, has told members of Parliament in a particular debate in January 2013, Lutfur Rahman, although in post as elected mayor, would sit in the council chamber while the council meeting was taking place, but he would refuse to speak to the councillors on the ground, as claimed by Isabel Freeman, the then monitoring officer, that for him to do so, that is to speak to the councillors and to the council, would be to violate or let the violation of his human rights to take place. That is to say, that a person who has been elected to a role in the council would be allowing his human rights to be breached if he did the job that he was elected for. That kind of absurdity is not only very common in the career, very short career of Lutfur Rahman, but that kind of absurdity is approved of by almost all his so-called supporters, except me. I am the only one who says that Bangladeshis in any public position in the UK, well, I'm saying that in the context of Bangladeshis mainly, in Brick Lane and in Tower Hamlets, as will be made more clearer as we progress, as we move to the next updatable event. I said to Lutfur Rahman that I said on the 6th of May, I said, you are still the leader of the Labour group on Tower Hamlets Council. And the group itself has voted against the mayor system. And you have not supported that. You should resign. because you are not fit to claim to be representing the views of the group. I can hear some interfering attempt by somebody outside the door. I'm not going to open the door. There are people walking past the door and they try their luck, try to open the door. I have told somebody that I'd be busy for 2 hours, and the 2 hours is still not up. You can hear the background noise. So, what happened on the 6th of May 2010? I told Lutfur Rahman he should resign because he was not fit to be the leader of the Labour group, which was opposed to the mayor system. And Lutfur Rahman said, I have told them, I have made it known that I don't agree with the group on that. And that's it. It was a short conversation, but that's the essence of it, which ended by my saying words to the effect that remember, Lutfur, this is the wrong thing you are doing, and it will be coming back to haunt you. Of course, I didn't give the details. I could not give the details of future events. I could only give the detail of the trend that he was heading for. Now, that was 12 years ago. And on the 5th of May 2022, Lutfur Rahman announced as having won his bid to become the mayor again of Tar Hamlets, and that his so-called Aspire party, the Aspire word, has been stolen by them from my creation. That's one of the thefts. Many hundreds of thefts have taken place of my creations by these individuals and their likes or their ilk. So the Aspire party candidates got the majority of seats in the Tar Hamlets Council as compared with the second largest number of councillors belonging to another group, which is the Labour Party, which was the majority ruling group until the 5th of May 2022. And as I have said about David Grossman, presenting the Newsnight item about Tar Hamlets and about Lutfur Rahman on the 19th of May 2022. And as I broadcast on this program and I have said it elsewhere in the Khoodeelaar campaign social media platforms, the fact that Lutfur Rahman has been described as a winner, as a surprise winner, and this, that, and the other. And some even have given him credit, which actually he doesn't deserve, for outmaneuvering the Labour Party on Tar Hamlets Council or in Tar Hamlets, as shown by his getting the majority of the council seats. That's not the case. It's nothing to do with the Lutfur Rahman outmaneuvering anybody. This is to do with the politically murdered state of the Labour Party, politically murdered by Keir Starmer. So if there is a politically murdered corpse of the party, then by definition the law of physics or political physics demands that the vacuum be not left empty, that be it filled. And that has happened with the Aspire party councillors. Since getting the post, Lutfur Rahman has been given kind of undue, undeserving promotion by a thing in the UK called Navara Media and a thing in the UK called, what is it called? It's a far-right group of so-called former Marxists, which is a fascist outfit, which actually justifies inciting hatred violent attacks on Muslims, and a thing in the USA called the Jacobin. And generally, in their kind of so-called reports on the SWP Wonkers website and SWP Wonkers publications, they have repeatedly given credit to Lutfur Rahman for defeating the Labour Party in Tower Hamlets. They've got it wrong. There is no Labour Party to defeat. It had been already dead. So we shall put the item, as it is called in the trade, that is an item. That's the end of the item and the start of another item. We shall be talking about the fact that the question that I put to the council in 2013 about the archives, let's find that one again, and we shall go on the updating mode, updating form. Let's see. All right. So I'm going off the camera for 1 minute to get hold of a device to find the information. If I can find the information there. Let's see if we can find the information better. The picture. Okay, so But the Tower Hamlets Council's website is 4 GMT on Wednesday, the 24th of September 2014. This is a brief introduction, contextually, recording and publishing the constitutional, democratic, ethical, social, and sociological question that I put to the full council meeting of Tower Hamlets Council on 30th of July 2014. In the context of all the news commentary, this is of relevance and will be commented on and updated later. This is my question. The text is written there, and I read this out slowly.
Knowledge and culture for written response on any outstanding matter within 28 days.
Thank you. Agenda item 6 is questions from members of the public. Each questioner may put one supplementary question arising directly from the question or the response, and there's a maximum of 20 minutes in total for the public questions. Any questions not reached within that time will receive a written reply. 8 questions listed in the agenda, and the first question is from Mr. Mohammed Haque.
Good evening, Assalamu alaikum. I extend happy Eid Mubarak to everyone who has fasted or not fasted, because spend the time in contemplation or not, but this is a solidarity statement for humanity, universal message of tolerance and respect. And with that introduction, I would say that this is something that I didn't know about, the context of, like my colleague here, concerned about Brick Lane. When I put this question at the start of June, I didn't know about Brick Lane or the concern that would be presented here. And it just comes 41 years ago, I had a group of students that defended the community in Brick Lane. And I'm glad to say that one of the students is present here, and his name is Abdul Mukid Chunnu. And I am pleased to say that the continuation of the defense of the community is consistent with the spirit of tolerance that we want to see extended across Tower Hamlets. And on that basis, I would say that this question is not critical. It is not intended to embarrass anybody, but to encompass the spirit of tolerance and solidarity. So I would expect in the coming year, the answer shouldn't be necessarily expected here in this minute, but this is the spirit, and I would read this out to those who have not seen the copy. What motivated the candidates at the 22nd of May 2014 election to seek election to Tower Hamlets, and what are the ethical, democratic, accountable actions that current councillors and Tower Hamlets Council are most content about, and what actions they are not content about, and what are the councillors doing to make all their actions accountable, ethical, transparent, and relevant to and representative of the daily lives, needs, expectations of ordinary people of all backgrounds in the London Borough of Tower Hamlets. Thank you, sir.
May I call upon the Executive Member, Councillor Oliur Rahman, to respond to this?
Thank you, Mr. Haque. Before I move to my answer, may I take a couple seconds to say a few words? I have seen you actually while I was growing up, living in Brick Lane, the work that you have done for the community and on behalf of the community, the campaigns, some of the campaigns that you have led. And I'm very pleased even now that you are still determined to do just for the residents of Tower Hamlets. And I am sure that you have certainly motivated many generation in the past, and I'm sure you will motivate many young generation in the future with your work and the commitment that you show for the communities in Tower Hamlets, regardless of their race and religion or whatever background that they come from. So I want to pay my gratitude and thanks to you for the work that you do. Can I now move to your question and answer as best as I can, obviously within the time limit. I cannot speak for everyone here, but I'm confident that their motivation for being a councillor are same as mine and Mayor Lutfur Rahman. We want to make Tower Hamlets a better place to live and work. We want to ensure residents from all background have the strongest voice and representation in this council and outside this council too. Thank you.
So we shall be
Do you have
talking
a
about.
supplementary question?
Well, I would exchange this sense of mutual recognition for the selfless work that people have been doing in the community, whether they're listed or not. Most of the proceedings in this kind of situation are limited to time and procedures. So the spirit should be to extend our support to the whole community, and that is where I would leave this, for the future and for the next coming year for the council. Thank you.
Does the executive member wish to respond directly, Councillor Wayne?
Mr. Haque, I fully agree with you, and I'm hoping also the public will hold their councillors to account for the work they do and reason they get elected. And also to demonstrate in this council, you saw that we was presented with the award for the work that this council does. And I want to make this very clear. It does not happen by accident. It happens by good political leadership.
Thank you very much.
The next question is from Mr. John Wright.
So what we shall be doing, that question and that answer was in July 2014. My question about the archives took place a year before that. So what we shall be doing in the next editions of this program will be to go over those questions that I put and the answers and diagnose them extensively. It seems that I'm the only one who has asked such questions. On the record, the evidence shows that. It's not me saying it, the evidence shows that. Now, on the banner, there is the reference to this, the timing of this, or the time and the date of this particular edition is wrong there, because the time is 0950 GMT. It's not that edition. That edition already broadcast at 0950. This is the one that is 2150 GMT, I think. And so therefore it's about 12 hours after the one that we broadcast. So this is the correction, and we shall be doing the necessary follow-up corrections in due course. Now, going back to the council's composition with councillors, you will notice that the response that was stated by Oliver Rahman didn't mention the ward mayor, I don't think. And he also didn't mention the name of Lutfur Rahman when he said political leadership. Now, I shall be talking about some of the councillors that have been involved with the Lutfur Rahman kind of regime during the period 2010 to 2015. And I shall show that democracy was sabotaged, undermined, denied. And some of the people like Oliver Rahman, who had comparatively slightly different approach to the approach shown by Alibor Chaudhry, were not given the platform, the opportunity by Lutfur Rahman to do what they could do in order to really come anywhere near to serving the community. Now, the words that Oli Rahman said about his growing up and seeing me inspiring people and defending the community are a sample. I didn't anticipate him saying that, because the general attitude on the part of the councillors is that they don't recognize anybody in the community. Now, the fact that I've been the most active member of the and doing the most active campaigns is something that doesn't need really reiterating. In fact, on the 20th of September 2012, Lutfur Ahmad volunteered words to the effect that he said to me, "You should have been the mayor. You should have been the MP, not me, the mayor," etc. Now, why did he say that? Because Lutfur Rahman, like Oliver Rahman, had seen me as he was growing up. But although he had seen me growing up, him growing up, seen my action, Lutfur Rahman decided that he would deny the teachings that I impart and seek a political career as an endorsee, as a brainwashed agent. Brainwashed is the concept that has been used about Lutfur Rahman by Abbas Uddin Elias Salal. Abbas Uddin Elias Salal was the leader of the Tar Hamlets Council during the formation of the Khoodeelaar campaign. And it was some years before that that Abbas Uddin Elias Salal recruited a novice Lutfur Rahman as a new councillor for the Labour Party. So in his bid to become the Labour Party's official candidate for mayor election in 2010, Abbas Uddin Elias Salal found himself in a serious dispute with Lutfur Rahman, who was still a member of the Labour Party. And he, along with people that supported him, alias Abbas Uddin Elias Salal, compiled a dossier that was intended to paint Lutfur Rahman as a brainwashed, corrupt, dishonest agent of the cabal that operated from the East London Mosque. Remember the references to the East London Mosque. And so that dossier by Abbas Uddin Elias Salal was submitted to the then Labour Party National Executive Committee. And because there were various legitimate reasons for the tension between the Abbas Uddin Elias Salal group in the Labour Party in Tar Hamlets and those intruders, as Abbas Uddin Halal knew, the intruders who had secretly taken over the electorate in the Labour Party, who were pushing Lutfur Rahman as the candidate. And Lutfur Rahman was actually selected as candidate for the Labour Party for the election of 2010, October 2010 mayor election. So Lutfur Rahman was the subject of the dossier, and the dossier was kind of scathing in criticism of Lutfur Rahman and his endorser and his brainwashers. We have discussed this by using different words and different forms, but paraphrasing the same facts in different ways and different editions on different occasions. But these are all absolutely current and valuable and valid issues of concern to the quality of democracy in Tar Hamlets as being obstructed, as being denied by the corrupt and politically murdered Labour Party and by the corrupt cabal that actually belongs in the thing called Aspire Party. I'm saying the corrupt cabal that belongs in the thing that is called the Aspire Party. Now, if they go to court and challenge my use of the language, it can be defended on the grounds that I am saying this on the overwhelming basis that the Aspire Party is not really an Aspire Party. It's a party that actually resembles closely what Richard Morey said about Lutfur Rahman in April 2015, that Lutfur Rahman was singularly selfish, interested in his own interests. And Morey even admitted that Lutfur Rahman was not interested in helping the Bangladeshi community. Most people who have been talking about Tar Hamlets and Bangladeshis and Lutfur Rahman may not realize that, but that is a very crucial statement by somebody like Richard Morey, who is not a Bangladeshi and who is not sufficiently educated about the need for him to be behaving in an expressly anti-racist way. So Richard Morey, a licensed law trader, is a racist in my view. But that doesn't mean that his use of the various legislation or legislative instruments in diagnosing the fraud and corruption in the behavior of Lutfur Rahman in 2014 can be dismissed only because Morey is a racist. The two do not go together because Morey is a racist, but most racists don't have the opportunity or the platform to diagnose in public forums the illegality and the corruption and the fraud in the way that Morey has done. I was asked by people opposed to Lutfur Rahman within days of 23rd of April 2015 as to whether Lutfur Rahman would be able to successfully mount any challenge to the Morey ruling. That was a question put to me by a group of people which was walking from the Whitechapel Road, taking a shortcut to the Balance Road and from there to the Hanbury Street. And I was going the opposite direction from the Trahan Close. And so this group of 3 or 4, I think, asked me, based on their years of knowledge about my knowledge about the law, constitution, and my action as a leading organizer, the organizer of the campaign for rights of the community. They said, what does Mr. Haque think of the decision by the Electoral Court Commissioner? Will Lutfur Rahman be able to overturn this? I said, no way. I said, Morey may have all kinds of drawbacks in his ruling, which he has, and I have outlined some of them, and I shall continue to outline the other important ones as well in due course. But Morey has done a very crafty thing. He has invoked most of what could be invoked in the existing kind of legislative frame in context. And Morey has delivered a very legalistic kind of ruling, which would be very, very difficult to question, let alone overturn. So Lutfur Rahman may fantasize, but he is not going to overturn what Morey has done. He cannot have undone what Morey has done. And I think this is something I said that in April 2015. So what is that? 7 years ago I said that, and it is absolutely vindicated. That is to say, what I said 7 years ago about Mori has been shown to have been the correct one. Now, the vindicated is a word that means affirmed. Vindicated doesn't mean disproved. Vindicated means proven. Why am I talking about that? Because in the Newsnight program, the report dated the 19th of May 2022, and as fronted by the Newsnight reporter David Grossman, one person was interviewed as a supporter of Lutfur Rahman. And this person was described as Councillor Kabir Ahmed. Now, Kabir Ahmed previously, not currently, but previously, was said to have told people that he was studying for a legal qualification. Now, that was 5, 6, 7 years ago. 5, 6, 7 years later, there is no sign that Kabir Ahmed has become a licensed law trader. He may have been reading some legal courses, law courses, or whatever. But as far as I can see, there is no evidence that he has become a licensed law trader, either as a solicitor, or as a barrister, or as a legal executive. However, during the period of Lutfur Rahman's reign as quote mayor, before the 23rd of April 2015, many interventions by Kabir Ahmed before he lost the council seat, many interventions by Kabir Ahmed had the appearance of Kabir Ahmed being confident about his knowledge of the law, his knowledge of morality, his knowledge of ethics, and his knowledge of procedures, etc., etc. And he was scathing in his attitude, not in his words, but in attitude, just like another councillor from the other side of the divide in the council was to his opponents, Abdal Ullah. So Kabir Ahmed, when he spoke to the Newsnight program as broadcast dated the 19th of May 2022, used the word completely wrongly. Totally, absolutely, utterly wrongly. It is going to be his embarrassing moment on that program. Because Kabir Ahmed said that the outcome of the 5th of May 2022 election, council elections and the quote election to the post of mayor in Hamlers, vindicated Lutfur Rahman's opponents. It didn't. It completely not vindicated, did not vindicate any of Lutfur Rahman's critics. It vindicated Lutfur Rahman's supporters. Whereas Kabir Ahmed, appearing to be a supporter, said that the results and the re-election of Lutfur Rahman vindicated his opponents, political opponents. Now, where had Kabir Ahmed been? How could he do that? That is an unacceptable use of the word vindicated in his context, not objectively speaking. And it exposes Kabir Ahmed as being ignorant, seriously ignorant, and lacking clarity and lacking alertness and lacking control of what he is saying. In the law of defamation, meaning of each words or meanings is central at a stage where the the application for defamation hearing are considered and examined. Now, if there is an action in defamation against anyone belonging to Lutfur Rahman's quote political party, Aspire party, or to anyone that supports them, and if a claim is made based on what Kabir Ahmad has said, then that will go fundamentally very strongly against Lutfur Rahman's interests, and it would expose Kabir Ahmad as absolutely unfit to appear to be saying what he did say and what was broadcast. As the chair of the Aspire party, known in the past as chair of the Aspire party, a man called Kalam Chaudhry, who is known in the community as Abu Tahir, has been sent a question in a detailed account of this statement by Kabir Ahmad and other parts of Kabir Ahmad's communications. And the reason why we have asked Kalam Chaudhry, alias Abu Tahir, the question is so that in any defamation action in the High Court, Queen's Bench Division, there is no way that any of them can say that they were not given the opportunity to clarify what we had said or what others had said in publications about Lutfur Rahman and his supporters and his support and his so-called political party. We don't accept that Aspire is a political party. As I said, it's a party which is a camouflage for Lutfur Rahman to hide his ambition. Most of the people in the so-called Aspire party will not stay around. That is to say, they will not stay the course as dignified, dedicated, democratic councillors. All kinds of factors will intervene and they will disappear, most of them. For example, I can cite the example of Shahid Ali. Now, Shahid Ali, I knew his father. That shows the gap between me and him. When Shahid Ali was tiny, like 5 or 6 or whatever, walking in the Cannon Street Road with his father, because Shahid Ali grew up in the Cannon Street Road, Wellstead House. His late father was a friend of mine. He was a decent member of the community. So I asked him about his son, and he was very proud, as any decent parent would be, about their child. So Shahid Ali, I have known him for a very long time. So Shahid Ali was one of the previously Labour Party members, and I was a member of the Labour Party, and he found it possible, let's say, after the mayoral kind of election, to switch from being a Labour councillor to being a member of the Lutfur Rahman side on the Township Council. Now, Shahid Ali knows, let's put it this way, Shahid Ali knows of literally hundreds of incidents which featured Lutfur Rahman and his fanatical colluders making mistakes. And making mistakes actually concerning the rights of the community, rights of the people, and rights of the most vulnerable, most unrepresented and kind of dismissed people, disadvantaged people, discriminated against people in Tower Hamlets. Shahid Ali knows that most of the people in Tower Hamlets who had supported Lutfur Rahman had done so in good faith, in the good expectation that Lutfur Rahman and his cabal would reciprocate, say thank you in return to the community for supporting them by upholding the community, the individuals' rights, etc., vis-a-vis the crooks in the council. Shahid Ali knows that that was not their priority, but he knows that that should have been their priority. Because Shahid Ali had been a member of the Labour group and he was critical of many of the Labour Party members. So that is one. Shahid Ali is one in the group that supported Lutfur Rahman but was let down, I would say. Instead of giving Shahid Ali a post as an experienced member of the council, an experienced activist in the community, Lutfur Rahman gave the task of the enforcer to Ali Bor Chaudhry, who has the distinction, along with Lutfur Rahman, of being the only councillor to be kicked out of the council by Richard Morey for misconduct, let's put it this way. Because like Shahid Ali, Ali Bor is too young for me to kind of denounce in that way. I am protective towards them as a general culture of the community. And I don't want Ali Bor Chaudhry to disappear and disgrace again, despite the fact that Ali Bor Chaudhry witnessed a series of very, very fundamentally devastating denials and violations and crimes committed by the Lutfur Rahman regime against the community. And we shall be discussing those in detail in due course later. So that was Shahid Ali. And then it is clear that Shahid Ali decided not to become an Aspire party candidate. We shall go on into details another time. But that is a fact that Shahid Ali is the only one of the kind of members of Lutfur Rahman's quote administration from the years before the 25th of April 2022 decision by Richard Morey to not stand for election on the 5th of May as a member of the Aspire party that Lutfur Rahman, quote, set up and represents or fronts. So when I asked Kalam Chaudhry, alias Abu Tahir, I expected him to send me a response, even if he did not reply to my specific questions about Kabir Ahmad, at least to share that he recognizes my questions. Because in the years that I have known Abu Tahir, Kalam Chaudhry, who introduced himself to me, and I'll come to the very hilarious way that he introduced himself to me, although he was not being hilarious, he was being absolutely honest. In the mid-19 or early 1980s, I have known Abu Tahir for these years. And despite the fact that I have often, on the facts, criticized some of the things he has done, he has not ignored my communications in the way that he has been doing this time. So what I read in that silence by Abu Tahir is that he has been told by Lutfur Rahman and his cabal of advisors and endorsers and brainwashers to stay silent, because it is very It is a very strong case of libel and defamation, because Kabir Ahmad has created an aggravated reason for us to defame, for us to sue him in defamation. Kabir Ahmad shows his contempt for the people in his defamatory, absurd, ignorant response, just in the same way that Mahi Ferdaus Jalil had shown sometime in 2004, while Jalil was introduced to me by Turan Mia in his Turan Mia's shop in Hanbury Street. Mahi Ferdaus Jalil was introduced as someone who is setting up a Siloti television channel. That was in 2004. And I asked, strictly on the basis of the introduction by Turan Mia, I asked Mahi Ferdaus Jalil to tell me about it. Hello? Hold on a second. I'm going off the camera now. No, but I'm busy. I said I'm busy now, so we'll do it later, okay? So this is, how long is it? 1 hour 42 minutes. And the time is 23:28 hours GMT. Still on Wednesday, the 10th of August 2022. So, when Kabir Ahmad sent the defamatory piece, the defamation consisted of the following primary list of wrongs. First of all, Kabir Ahmad misstated the organization that had sent him the email, misdescribed it, and accused the organization of trading by false pretense or falsely representing itself as being what it was not. Now, Kabir Ahmad will have to spend the rest of his biological life justifying that untruthful, unfounded, unjustified, idiotic assertion. The question to him was sent entirely, strictly based on the contents of the David Grossman reported piece on the Newsnight program on the 19th of May 2022. Nothing more, nothing less. And it was based entirely on the contents as published. The contents as published by Kabir Ahmad's statements, which was boastful of Lutfur Rahman's achievements. Everything else that Kabir Ahmad said about Lutfur Rahman was unjustified, objectively unjustified. It may be justified in a private ceremony, private meeting, get together among Lutfur Rahman's cabal and supporters and fans or whatever. But it is objectively unjustified. And we knew that it was unjustified, which is why we sent the question. Now, when Lutfur Rahman lied to me in the early 1990s, saying that he was a solicitor, did he know that his lie would come back to haunt him? He saw me as he was going into the Aldgate East Underground Station. I was coming out of the station and he gave me the Lutfur Rahman salute, which is apparently a show of respect, greeting me with a salute, Assalamu alaikum, but it contained all kinds of falsehood and contradictions. So in politeness, I asked Lutfur Rahman what he was doing. And he said he was a solicitor. He was not a solicitor. Either he was lying on that day, or he lied after he was ousted by Richard Morey. Because after he was ousted by Richard Morey and the Solicitors Regulation Authority, the Solicitors Regulation Authority is one of the things that I have been instrumental in influencing the creation of. Because I had been fighting the Law Society for a very long time, accusing the Law Society of crass corruption and criminality in covering up the crooks in the solicitor's business. I am known as being the most emphatic campaigner for ending corruption in the Law Society, which is the same reason I'm against corruption in the licensed law trade, that I refused to take the barrister's license from the Lincoln Inn in 1973. Count the years. But I have been, if anything, more legally active than hundreds of licensed law trading barristers and solicitors combined. I say that any number of times. And Kabir Ahmad will have to spend his rest of his biological life denying my record and my work. So how dare Kabir Ahmad accuse me and my organization, my work, in simply asking fact-checking question as to what facts he, Kabir Ahmad, could cite in justification of his lying endorsement of Lutfur Rahman as broadcast on the Newsnight program on the 19th of May, 2022. Dorasullah is a former ceremonial speaker of the Tolerance Council. Can I find the email that Dorasullah sent me? Let me see if I can find the email. Dorasullah sent me sometime, maybe 5 years ago. Let's see. So I'm looking for the email that the Rasulullah sent me. Let's check if we can find it. Now, in his email, I'm just going to check again. In his email sent on Monday, no, not on Monday. Let's see the original date. So this is showing 26th of August, 2016 at midnight 34 hours local time. And it's headed Invitation to Attend Community Issues Program on 30th of August 2016 at 7 p.m. for 8 p.m. start. Let me just, yes. The email that the Rasulullah sent on the 25th of August 2016 read, Dear Muhammad Haque Baisab, my name is spelled Muhammad, not Mohammed Haque Baisab, but anyway, that is his spelling, which is a common error that is made by careless writers. Baisab is the Siloti word, is elder brother, let's say. So, dear Muhammad Haque Baisab, I would like to invite you to my program. Program is spelled in an American spelling, Program, as a guest on Tuesday, the 30th of August, 2016 at 7 p.m. for 8 p.m. start. We will be covering a range of issues, including Baishaki Mela, Kabi Nazrul Center, Tower Hamlets, playing fields, etc. And would, then there is a gap. Well, would, there is a missing word, which I feel by sick, S-I-C. So it says, and would grateful for your contribution as a panel member. Please kindly confirm your attendance by way of an email, or you may contact me on my mobile on 07956 186 430. Has the Rasulullah changed his mobile number since then? Is a question to be investigated. I look forward to hearing from you. Yours sincerely, Dorasullah, presenter of Community Issues Program. Now, say that again. So I replied to that on the same day. Well, the following day, let's say 26th of August 2016, I said, if you are Dorasullah, and if you indeed sent the email quoted here, then why have you been ignoring the calls to the mobile number you sent in a text? Now, there has been no reply to that question. And this is why I said whether he has changed his mobile number. Now, the Rasulullah, just as Shahid Ali, the Rasulullah has been around in Tower Hamlets, as Shahid Ali has been, but Shahid Ali has been longer standing, longer ranging than the Rasulullah in community terms. But the Rasulullah is as widely known as Shahid Ali because the Rasulullah has been involved as a kind of member of the Labour Party, kind of careerist bloc. And he has become councillor. And in the course of his being a councillor, the Rasulullah was a ceremonial mayor. And we've got other things about the Rasulullah. which we shall be updating on in due course. Now, going back to this invitation, what platform was the Rasulullah inviting me to appear on? It's an ethnicity-linked television channel broadcast on the satellite platform. I had absolutely no contact with this channel, and I had no interest in having any contact with this channel. What happened as a result of this email is that I met the Rasulullah to establish what would be the purpose of this, my appearing on any program with him or that program on that date. So I met him to discuss that, and we sat at a place in the Crisp Street Market in Poplar, and I think we spent about half an hour to 40 minutes. I could be wrong, but that is the kind of amount of time that it seems to me we spent. My purpose was to establish what was it that the Rasulullah, why was he inviting me at all? Because the people that the Rasulullah had connections with in social terms would not politically or socially, most certainly not ethically, agree with anything I do, not voluntarily. The only time that the Rasulullah was seen to be agreeing with me was when he found that the KhoodeelaarTV campaign I organized in defending the community and against the Crossrail hole. The KhoodeelaarTV campaign was so overwhelmingly succeeding in exposing the lies of the council, Tower Hamlets Council, of which he was a member, that he decided it was the best way to go about things by pretending to be in agreement with what I was saying. So he said words to the effect, privately, that is not in public communication, but privately he would say that he agreed with me, etc., etc. But otherwise, he belonged with the people that were led by or misled by Michael Crook, who was in post as leader of the labor group at one time during the height of the KhoodeelaarTV campaign's particular focus against the Crossrail hole. What happened was that Turan Mia's shop in Hanbury Street became the headquarters, the campaign headquarters of the KhoodeelaarTV campaign. Turan Mia's shop, not some other office, but it was a shop that Turan Mia gave because he was himself a dedicated member of the KhoodeelaarTV campaign, because his shop was directly affected as a target of the Crossrail hole. And what happened was that this went on, let's say, how long did this the heightened kind of state of the KhoodeelaarTV campaign against the Tower Hamlets Council went like this. The Rasulullah is one of the people that, how shall I say, is socially friendly to an environment where normally people drink considerable amounts of alcohol. So sometimes the Rasulullah would go to Turan's shop after hours. And I and Turan and some other people in the KhoodeelaarTV campaign would spend hours talking about the KhoodeelaarTV campaigns every day. Sometimes we left Turan's shop at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, sometimes at 11, 10, whatever. So the Rasulullah would appear in Turan's shop some evenings in differing states of balance and control. But essentially, when he would see me, he would give me a very positive, undeniably positive and pleasant greeting. So I don't deny that he has been positive and undeniably polite, etc. My contact with the other people in the community, in the Labour Party and around Labour Party, show that the Rasulullah has been a victim later, a victim of the internal Bangladeshi community politics, whereby a determined campaign has been in place, and I speak as of now as well. A determined campaign has been in place to prevent the Rasulullah standing as a Labour Party councillor again. I shall not name the individual, but as you can imagine, I know the individual. And I don't want to go into the actual reasons for the Rasulullah being targeted for this kind of victimization, which I think is a victimization, objectively speaking. Because apart from the fact that the Rasulullah has got so many things kind of that I disagree with about his role and his policy, the Rasulullah wants to show that he is a supporter of the community. Let's put it this way. So, as they say, his heart is in the right place. He wants to come across as a good person, helping the community, supporting the community. My nephew, Kutub, who is in Dhaka now, as I suspect, is still there. He probably will go to return to Silot during Thursday, the 11th of August, which we are now into. But he, that is Kutub, knows of an actual event where a play was enacted on one of the other channels, ethnicity linked channel. And the Rasulullah was featured as a character. And the Rasulullah, the character, was insulted. According to Kutub, I didn't see the actual episode, but according to my nephew Kutub, the Rasulullah was admonished, that is, told off by a senior figure, a unique senior figure with unique characteristics, as Kutub described it, who was seen as saying to the Rasulullah on the play, which was broadcast on the satellite television channel, words to the effect, or maybe these words to the Rasulullah, after the Rasulullah said something, and I'll come to that in a minute. Tui khegu. Now that was the nearest to the ultimate challenge to somebody's integrity and personality in the community, in the Siloti language. Because the character the Rasulullah played, according to the recollections given to me by Kutub, and the Kutub gave me the recollections on the 3rd of September 2019, when Kutub and I bumped into each other accidentally at the Stratford station in the London Borough of Newham. And then we ended up having about 2 hours of the first ever such meeting at a coffee house, which is a French name, Premont. And in the course of the conversation, Kutub volunteered the information about that episode in which the Rasulullah was told, Tui khegu, or words to the effect. And those words were actually prompted by the Rasulullah character recommending or suggesting that his would-be condemner be given some kind of gong or honor or something. Now, according to Qutb, the character, based on the Qutb's knowledge of decades of my role in the community, that character that told the Rasulullah, Tui Khegu, came very close to resembling me. Now we shall go on to discussing further this one, if Qutb agrees to discuss it further on this show. When he next appears, or the connection is made next time he is around. The point is that Kabir Ahmad was not biologically born. Well, not only Kabir Ahmad, Lutfur Rahman was not biologically born. Ali Bar Chaudhry was not biologically born. Shahid Ali was not biologically born. None of them was biologically born when I was already in the midst of one phase or another of a very heavy-duty series of actions defending the community, defending the values. So Kabir Ahmad, like Firdaus Jalil in 2004 in Turan Mia's shop, Kabir Ahmad made a serious mistake by dismissing my colleague or my organization that sent the fact checker email. Because Kabir Ahmad must have based his dismissing, defamatory, untruthful reply on his poor knowledge of the community. According to his poor knowledge of the community, the Bangladeshi community in Tower Hamlets was based on the likes of Lutfur Rahman and a few others. That's not true. Lutfur Rahman is a parasite benefiting from the existence of the community. And anyone who is following the parasite is doing damage to the community. We have said that the mayor election was a disgrace. The mayor election, the mayor imposition was a bad thing for the Bangladeshi community. Why? Because unlike back in Silot or in Dhaka or wherever, the Bangladeshis, or come to that, the Indians or the Chinese or the Polish, or the Poles, even the Poles, would remain for a very long time subject to rejection by the indigenous people. So, in order to make the same kind of achievement on objective criteria, any Bangladeshi person has to be of the highest quality and character and caliber. Otherwise, they would be drowned out by the indigenous people by sheer numbers and sheer longevity of their existence in the community over centuries. So here is the example. When I told Lutfur Rahman on the 29th of October 2010, after he saluted me, as I was on the main front of the main exit from the Brick Lane Jama Mosque, and Lutfur was coming out of the mosque. And I told him that he must very urgently sit down with me and talk and listen to me about the dangers that he faced as the newly elected incumbent in that post. I had no duty to tell him that. I have no duty to tell him that or any of the other councillors that, nor have I any duty to treat Kabir Ahmad with any kind of generosity after he has behaved with a contemptible, contemptuous, defamatory, ignorant, offensive way. As I said, if he reads the law as I know the law, for the rest of his biological life, he would not come anywhere near getting hold of the knowledge that I have, thank God. So Kabir Ahmad must send a prompt apology to me and to our organization. Otherwise, Kabir Ahmad will be facing pre-action proceedings far sooner than he has ever fantasized he would do. Now, this woman called Faisan, there is a woman called Faisan who is also apparently the monitoring officer in the London Borough of Township Council. Janet Faisan. F for Freddy, A for apple, S for sugar, A for apple, N for Neil or no one. Janet Faisan is a notorious employee in the legal section of the Township Council, which is stuffed full of crooks and criminals. And Janet Faisan's latest response to me is that I must desist from writing to her again. Now that idiot says desist. Desist is a criminal word, as if somebody is doing something wrong. Desist cannot be justified and justifiably used when highly moral and ethical course of questions is being put to the recipient, which is the case. Now, Will Tackley, who was appointed by John Biggs, after Biggs got in June 2015, now Will Tackley has so far failed to reply. It is possible that Will Tackley has forwarded my email to Janet Faisan, and Janet Faisan has written to me, asking me to desist. Now, if Faisan knows the procedures, she will know that she is very squarely in the frame, because Kabir Ahmad sent his communication, defamatory, contemptuous, contemptible communication, he copied it to Janet Faisan. Now, our questions sent to Kabir Ahmad did not get circulated to anybody else. Now, Kabir Ahmad probably misunderstood me and the campaign as being a typical Lilliputian community-based organization. He was probably trying to give the impression that if I saw the name Janet Faisan, I would be cowering in my boots. As I said, Janet Faisan is a crook. Janet Faisan is one of the liars in Tower Hamlets Council that I have been directly confronting and denouncing and challenging for a number of years. And they will be facing many more challenges over a very long time. Kabir Ahmad must know that I would have retired by now in terms of general chronology as a QC or as a judge or something many years ago, because I refused to become a barrister from the Lincoln's Inn, because I had ethical problems with these people at the Lincoln's Inn. They could not answer my ethical questions, my moral questions, my evidential questions. And anyone else who might be watching this and who has been anywhere near the County Court with me and who has witnessed the behavior of the racist criminal crook, Judith Goodman, Deputy District Judge, or who has been aware of my question to the racist liar, Edward Fitzpatrick of Garden Court Chambers in the Lincoln's Inn. Should know that events are going to take a very speedy shape concerning all of those very soon. This is the context of the licensed law traders, corruption and criminality. And I cite these empirical first-hand items of evidence as an introduction to Sue Braverman's denunciation of European human rights and Dominic Raab's reported plans to do similar things. Especially, Dominic Raab is reported by The Guardian as plotting to reduce the powers of the judges. Now that one is a very kind of personal thing to many of the judges in England. The judges in England enjoy their judicial pomposity. Although we don't, I would never accept the general thesis promoted by Paul Dacre. Paul Dacre, the racist criminal I have known since the early 1990s. I have known the racist liar before he became the editor of the Daily Mail. He was editor of the Times before he got to be appointed editor of the Daily Mail. So Paul Dacre, we shall be dealing with Paul Dacre in a way that he should have been dealt with by somebody, has not been dealt with ever, even despite the pretentious kind of ideas, kind of gestures by the Ian Pissoff misedited Private Lie. What is happening is that Paul Dacre, typically falsely and artificially, ran the front page of the Daily Mail, or the Mail on Sunday, whatever it was, and called the judges enemies of the people. That collection of enemies of the people judges was cobbled together to give the impression that anyone who was giving a judicial opinion against the acceptability of Brexit or Brexit-linked abuse of the law was an enemy of the people. Now, when that happened, the judges closed ranks and they resisted the then plot against the judiciary. Now, how do the judicial crooks operate in the English jurisdiction? The judicial crooks, that is the highest high court judges, Supreme Court judges, etc., work in the same way that the crooks in government or crooks in parliament or crooks in the media operate. They gang up. In the case of the libel case brought by Aaron Banks against Carol Cadwalladr, there was an exception because he craftily chose to sue for defamation Carol instead of suing for the same defamation The Guardian and The Observer, which published her articles. That was a strategically decided assault intended to destroy, physically, emotionally destroy Carol Cadwalder by isolating her from her colleagues and kind of comrades in the court action. What happened was that Arron Banks capitalized on the fact that Carol wasn't a wealthy person. So, and he also hopefully or hoped that the traditional bias in the libel courts in favor of the rich and famous would prevail in his favor and it would destroy Carol. And Carol's argument that he only referred to particular links that Banks had with the Soviet or the Russian regime. The references were justified in the context of public interest. There's a very high degree of public interest in the reporting of Arron Banks' connections with the Russian regime. Now, what happened was Carol wasn't formally supported by the National Union of Journalists. Now, we shall talk about National Union of Journalists at length on future occasions. But I have said, because I have been a member of the National Union of Journalists, and I have attended I have attended enough events which are attended by known activists in the NUJ. My experience and observations at those events have confirmed that the National Union of Journalists is not enlightened. It is not led by enlightened members, and it hasn't got an active profile, activist profile at all. And the fact that the libel action brought against Carol was left unsupported by the NUJ. I mean, the NUJ should have supported Carol, and they didn't. Well, if they did, it would have been a very minor way of supporting. That shows that the quality of journalism in this country, quite apart from the fact that Rupert Murdoch is a dirty digger and all the rest of it, journalists never get reported about journalists resisting the wrong journalism, corrupt journalism, racist journalism at all. And we shall be continuing on those in due course. I think this is time to bring an end to this particular edition of the KhoodeelaR television channel at midnight, 11 past midnight on Thursday, the 11th of August 2022. It's 11th of midnight and it's 11 minutes past 1 on Thursday, 11th of August 2022, the UK time.